Hey, welcome. This is Brett with You Bloom, and today we are doing a Q&A. And the Q&A is on intuition, our last of the series of videos. Now, in this Q&A, we don't have any Q's, but we are going to give you some A's. Nobody's asking any questions this round. My hope is that's because everything was so crystal clear. And as always, I'm always encouraging you guys to watch the Q&As even if you don't have a question in there, because this is where we get some more information. This is where things get a little bit more refined and a little bit clearer. So that's what we're going to do even in this Q&A without any Q's. I'm still going to give you some answers. All of You Bloom, what we've been focusing on over the last 12 weeks is helping you work to a place where you are good with you. So let me start with a little bit of a story to kind of summarize what we're doing, particularly with this one on intuition. So I was talking to a client the other day, and she was having tons of anxiety. And her anxiety was stemmed from or related to her spouse. And the situation was, well, actually, it wasn't her spouse. It was her ex-spouse. They were divorced. And the situation was that every time he'd call, every time he'd come by, every time she'd have to interact with him, every time any contact was made with him, this overwhelming feeling of anxiety would flood her. And as we're talking about it in therapy, she is kind of beside herself because in her mind, she's done everything. She's done everything she can to protect herself from his toxic nature, which is why she divorced him, right? It's kind of the point of that. Well, as we start talking about why is it you're feeling anxious? Well, the obvious answer for why she's feeling anxious is because she's feeling unsafe. And we start playing with that. Well, what is she doing? Why is she feeling unsafe? Well, she's divorced. She's created this distance between the two of them, and yet the anxiety continues. Well, as we start playing with the idea of where is this anxiety, where does this feeling of unsafe come from, I suggest an idea. And the idea is maybe, just maybe, her anxiety is coming from her. Stay with me for a minute. It's really easy to imagine that the anxiety she's having is coming from him, because every time she's around him, she's triggered and she's feeling anxious. But I propose for a minute, maybe the anxiety is coming from inside of herself. And maybe where she is feeling unsafe is within herself. Meaning that there's a part of her that doesn't trust her, that isn't sure she's going to keep her boundaries, that isn't sure she's going to be able to take care and protect herself. So every time he calls, every time she has interaction with him, anytime she contacts him for anything or even thinks about him, she begins to feel anxious because that part of her inside is screaming out, I don't feel safe. I don't feel safe with you. I don't feel like you as the client, you're gonna take care of us. You're gonna be able to protect yourself from him, from the ex. The history has been he's pushing boundaries. The history has been he's manipulating. The history has been he's lying. And the history has also been that although she may have known it, she still bought into it. She still got seduced or got manipulated or got tricked or got lied to, and her intuition is afraid. Her intuition's afraid that she is not going to take care of herself. She's going to fall for the old lies. She's going to fall for the old manipulations. She's going to fall for the old tricks, and she is afraid not of him, but she is afraid for and of and about herself. She's afraid she is not going to take care of herself. It's a different spin, and it's an important change because where we have control, where we can influence control, where we can create safety is through ourselves. I don't have control of anybody else. And if I'm dependent on somebody else to do the right thing, that they're going to follow through, that they're going to do what they say they're going to do, and they don't, that leaves me out of control. But if I have control within me, I'm going to stick to my boundaries. I'm going to stay clear with who I am. I am going to follow my intuition and what I need to do to take care of me. Then I have power. Then I have control because I am controlling me. So as we start talking about that new idea, that new approach to it, I asked her, listen to your intuition. What is your intuition telling you that you need from you? Not from him, but from you. She sat back and she took some breaths and started to float that question. That's part of our process of intuition. She started floating the question, what do I need? What do I need? And the answer came back that she needs better boundaries. That she doesn't want to feel like at any moment he could reach out to her, any moment he could call her, any moment she has to deal with him. That felt too anxiety provoking. So she started talking about what she needed in terms of better boundaries. And what she needed was, I need to really, I was talking about the client, I really need to limit contact. I really need to take control of our communication. And what she decided to do was to limit the only time she's going to talk to him, the only time she's going to interact with him, the only time that she's going to have any kind of communication with him is through email. That way, one, it's all documented, awesome, but two, she can choose. Do I want to look at that email right now? Do I not want to look at that email right now? She can begin to have control of her own life and control of, when she's going to deal with him, when she's going to interact with him. And he just doesn't have free reign anymore to be able to push her buttons or be able to get in her face or get in her space. And by listening to her intuition and listening to, okay, what do I need for me? What do I need to do to take care of me? She was able to start to feel safe with herself. Not with him. He's not safe. He's a jerk. He's a liar. He's a manipulator. You can't feel safe. Sorry. You can't. Sorry. You can't feel safe with that because that is not a safe person. But she can feel safe with herself. And the key to creating safety for herself was to listen to herself, and then to follow through with what she was hearing in herself, hearing from her intuition, to take care of herself. That's how intuition works. You have the answers. You have the answers of what you need. And when you start listening more and more to yourself and start hearing the answers inside of yourself of what you need, you start taking control. And you will then feel safe. Because it's that feeling of control that creates the feeling of safety. But in order to do all of that, it all begins with you listening. Listening to your intuition. Listening to your answers. And then trusting. And then following through. And then, actually building these consequences, building these boundaries, and making sure that you are enforcing them. Because the other person won't. It took probably 15, 20, 30 different conversations with him through email to finally get the message. I'm not responding to your texts. I'm not responding to your calls. You're not welcome to come over whenever you want to. None of that's going to happen anymore. And of course he didn't want to hear it. Of course he didn't want to abide by that, because that's his job, is to be a jerk. He's good at it. But her job is to make sure that she holds those boundaries. She's the one that's responsible for holding her own boundaries. Now, for you, my hope is that you're beginning to create a sense of discernment. A discernment with all these different voices in your head. We have your thinking brain, we have your emotional mind, we have this kind of visceral body mind, and then we have a higher thinking brain, your intuition. And as you begin to hear these different voices, you can begin to sense that they each have different qualities to them. Your thinking brain is the chattery, talky part of you. Your emotional mind is the angst, the anxiety, the emotions that come up in you. And oftentimes those emotions are collapsed. They're anxious, they're afraid, they're negative. That's not your intuition. You're feeling it, but that's not your intuition. Because your intuition isn't a feeling of collapse. It's a feeling of flow. Even your body, you may feel tension, you may feel stress, you may feel that kind of gut turning. Again, that is not your intuition. When you're listening to your gut, it is not listening to this knot that is inside of you. When you're listening to your intuition, you're going to hear and feel peace. That is what you're focused on, is this feeling of peace within yourself. That is going to be your guiding point. God's voice, as I always like to think of it, is not a voice of anxiety or fear or upset or collapse. God's voice is a voice of peace and calm. So, my encouragement to you this week, please practice listening to your intuition, because that is going to be your key. That is going to be the thing that is going to get you through at the end of the day, is listening to yourself. Your answers are always here. They're always available. They're always within you. And that's what's going to create that sense of safety, is to have those resources within you. But you have to, one, trust. You have to trust your intuition. And two, you have to follow through. If you don't trust your intuition, if you don't listen to your intuition, and then don't follow through with what your gut is telling you, you're going to feel anxiety. Because then you're going to be trapped in listening to your emotional mind, which doesn't have the best guidance, which doesn't have the best direction for you, which doesn't have actually your best interest in mind. Your emotional mind is focused on anxiety, fear, and that's what it's going to propagate, more and more anxiety and fear, because that's what it's based in, rooted in. So, again, I want to emphasize for you a quieting, a centering, allowing yourself to feel still enough to hear and listen to the intuition inside of you. Thank you so much for being a part of You Bloom. I really hope and pray that this program was useful. It helped you create the changes that you've been looking for. Thanks again for watching and being a part of this. Hopefully, I will get to talk to you again soon. Take care.